Hello. I'd like to inform you today about policy changes made by the UFC. These changes include IV bans, the enforcement, and who handles the drug testing. The third party testing is a very big deal for the UFC as they have been accused in the past of brushing drug accusations under the table. They did their own post and pre-fight drug testing from the time that the UFC started until 2015. And steroid use was rampant in the UFC. This parting with a third party source is mostly influenced by GSP leaving the sport in 2013 after he defended his belt. He left the sport in a big part because of the steroid use in the UFC. As this third party source comes into effect in 2000, as it came into effect in 2013, they brought a large set of rules with them. The United States Anti-Doping Agency created a set of rules for the enforcement of drug testing in the UFC, who handles it, and what can and cannot be used. One of the things that they decided that they were going to ban from competition is the IV. The IV ban is a huge deal to fighters, as around 99% of UFC fighters use IV bags to rehydrate at their weigh-ins. This is due to cutting large amount of weights the day before, roughly 10 to 15 pounds that night. It's called drying up. It is a method that they use to where they'll gain more weight back after weigh-ins by using an IV bag, by properly dieting during their training camp. This gives them an advantage in the ring as they fight heavier than their listed weight. This ban means that fighters will no longer be able to rehydrate fast. This allows for the fluid that surrounds the brain to not fully replenish itself. And that is in part because orally the body can't handle rehydration that fast. And this fluid is what protects your brain from smacking against your skull, resulting in a knockout. As fighters are more susceptible to knockouts, long term they will have brain trauma. This brain trauma will shorten their career. The UFC is doing a test with a brain neurologist to see the long term effects of fighting on the brain. This is a big step towards their goal that they have publicly stated of long term fighter health, and it also goes hand in hand with the enforcement of the anti doping policy that they set in place. The U.S. Anti Doping Agency set it with FDA agent Nowitzki set aside a large scale of enforcements for positive drug tests. They've classified these in two categories: um, identified or specified and non-specified substances. The specified substances include steroids, human growth hormone, and blood doping or IVs. The non-specified include marijuana, cocaine, and abusable drugs and alcohol. This is a big deal for fighters as out of competition, a lot of them use medical marijuana or marijuana in any sense to relax between fights. Um, there's a specified limit for how much they can have in their system out of competition. I do not know this limit though. The enforcement for your first failed specified test is 2 years. If you were to then fail a second drug test for a specified substance, it would be a 4 year suspension. And if there was a third one, it would then be an 8 year suspension as each occurrence doubles in time. The non specified occurrences are a little more lenient depending on how often you have them. Your first occurrence is 1 year with a possibility of two if you have more than one failed drug test. The second time you're busted for a non specified substance, it is a 2 year suspension. And then if you were ever busted for a third time, it'll be a 4-year suspension or possible banning from the UFC. This is a big deal for fighters, who are honest in the sport, because getting rid of the drugs makes it a little bit easier to compete in the top 10 where the best fighters are. It also allows people from other organizations to come in and compete at a high level without the use of steroids or any other cheating substance. And that is the policy changes that the UFC has made to make it better.